This video will contain spoilers for Girls' Last Tour, both for the anime and the manga. It's been over a year since I first watched the show, and maybe half a year after that since I finished the manga. But I still feel the impact that Girls' Last Tour left on me. Maybe it was good that I've had this much time, so I could really organize my thoughts. While I haven't watched nearly as many shows as most of the other anime YouTubers, I nonetheless wanted to write this in hopes that the series gets as much recognition as possible. Just like the layers that Chi and Yu explore, it has complex layers, each delivering powerful and touching messages that I wish could reach more people. Among the many aspects that I could talk about, I want to focus on just a few that I believe make this series stand out. Its sense of peace and reflection, its commentary on society, its capacity for showing the human heart, and its theme of finding happiness in adversity. This is my reflection on Girls' Last Tour. The environments we put ourselves into have a profound impact on the way we feel and think. Imagine a peaceful stroll through a quiet, sunny meadow surrounded by pine trees. One may feel a warm tranquility and be able to think about what is held closely. Compare that to the exciting cacophony of a heavy metal concert. In that scenario, one may feel the rush of adrenaline igniting a sense of explosive entertainment. Usually, of course, people will remain in the familiarity of their homes. However, no home is the same as the next, and each atmosphere can vary wildly compared to another person's. To capture a certain atmosphere in any form of media is to greatly enhance what story is told and what messages are delivered. I don't want to get too technical while praising the series, considering that it's not my area of expertise, but the way it builds such a wholly distinctive atmosphere is something that I want to talk about. This part mostly applies to the anime and not the manga, but that isn't to say that the manga lacks atmosphere. Let's look at the first episode as an example, when the girls are wandering around the scrapyard. As viewers, we can recognize that there was a battle in the area some time ago, due to the discarded weapons and ruined vehicles. The falling snow and ambient wind create an eerie stillness, as though we were walking through a gravesite. However, the girls don't recognize this. Instead, they're talking about whether it's possible to eat a tank. While this gives the impression that they're either incredibly ignorant to their surroundings or just outright disrespectful, neither option is absolutely correct. They have another goal in mind and are merely passing through, without devaluing the meaning of that location. The contrast between the somber background and the girls' lighthearted adventure is put to the forefront here. They know what war is and are familiar with a lot of the weapons they find, but they don't know why people would create weapons to fight each other. This is one of the many thoughts that pass through Chi and Yu's minds that hits particularly hard, especially given some of the events that made up the past century of our era. Complementing this paradoxical yet heartwarming image is the soundtrack. Girls' Last Tour has, in my opinion, a wonderful and unique collection of tracks that mesh perfectly with the aforementioned atmosphere. At times, they can be calm and soothing, as the girls explore new areas full of mysteries to be discovered. Other times, they can hold a more lighthearted and childish tone, accompanying Chi and Yu during their less serious moments of their journey. Then there's the side of the soundtrack that fully expresses the poignant emotions that arise while holding the final torch of humanity.
意味なんかなくてもさ、たまにはいいことあるよ。こんな世界でも。多分。だってこんなに景色が綺麗だし。Wandering a cold, unfamiliar world that has remained still for years and years, the girls continue on, step by step, hoping to find a new beginning.
Much of the weight felt from the atmosphere comes from the collection of locations that are visited. As Chi and Yu move along, they encounter many different areas that all have different stories to tell and secrets to discover. The scrapyard of episode 1 is one such example, but there are plenty of others that unlock other sides of human legacy. Throughout all these places, the girls piece together what happened during the tail end of the human era. Over the years, humanity advanced to the point of having such incredible power that they ended up destroying themselves. When the girls look through Kanazawa's camera files, they bear witness to these events. Throughout their journey, however, they are able to discover the very relics that led to society's downfall with their own hands. A scrapyard acting as a burial ground for the weapons of the old world, a giant robot resting against a former skyscraper, and countless other vaults hidden within the depths of the layered city. They tell the story of how it all came to pass. In the latter part of their adventure, Chi and Yu stumble across an art museum. Inside, they find a haunting image. It's unknown what the author wanted this piece to depict, but to me, it shows the perspective of the last humans being forced to watch the apocalypse. As humanity's pinnacle of strength, these ultimate weapons of mass destruction raged a fire that could not be extinguished, and countless lives had to stand in wonder. Will my time be fast or slow? Presumably, the girls don't know exactly what caused the apocalypse. Only upon looking at the camera files were they able to catch a glimpse of the memories of the ore. Even then, however, they might not know what it all truly meant. The audience, however, is fully aware. The world had ended long before Chi and Yu started their journey. Given that the perspective of this realization is that of two young girls, makes the impact even deeper. One of their final stops is an abandoned rocket facility. Inside, a projection of the solar system includes 3 lines, labeled 01, 02, and 03. Outside, an old rocket leans against a wall in the freezing air, held together by faulty wires and piles of snow. On the side of the ancient machine, the girls find the number 04. On the projection, 01 and 2 end within the reaches of our solar system. But 03's trail leads somewhere far away. Perhaps these rockets were a desperate attempt for survivors to flee their dying planet. Only one rocket succeeded in leaving our galactic home. The others weren't so lucky, and one never even took its first step. Exploring the ruins of society offers the chance to piece together a disturbing puzzle. All the locations that the girls stumble into say something else about this mystery. Whether it was their intention to or not, in the end they do complete this puzzle. All the pieces were scattered throughout these city layers. The series tells an entirely new story just through its use of environments and atmospheric emotion. Chi and Yu may be the main characters, but as the Kettenkrad tracks keep moving, they learn right alongside the audience. With every new level they reach, the more they discover what life was like well before they began their journey. Our existence on this earth is not perfect. The time we can stay on this planet is limited, and despite that deadline being impossibly distant for most, it's never a bad idea to begin work towards a happier future. Especially given the current state of the world, perhaps early preparations are needed. However, rather than fighting together with goals of a better tomorrow, we fight against each other over greedy desires of a better today. From individual quarrels to political arguments, most of these issues are irrelevant in the long term. Often, they even end up doing more harm than good to both sides. Then, there are other times when we come together and celebrate the intangible. The ability to find comfort and happiness in the unseen may seem preposterous, but there are a plethora of examples where hard evidence does not exist. Sometimes the hard evidence actually points towards the worst possible outcome. Because of this, people often choose to put their hopes towards the horizon, even if they don't expect to receive a response. When the apocalypse comes, I'm sure people will have nothing to fall back on but their own beliefs. Knowing that there is something more than one's current situation is reassuring, and these people will pass on more peacefully than those who have nothing to look forward to. I don't want to turn this into a discussion on religion per se. I have my own beliefs that I'll keep to myself. But I nonetheless noticed this in the series, and wanted to talk about its implications. In any case, Girls' Last Tour explores both of these concepts as Chi and Yu traverse the ruins of society. Upon finding a building that completely lit up their city from a distance, they enter to discover that it's a temple revering gods. It's pitch black inside though, and they end up separating when the lantern dies out. The girls had already discussed what paradise and the afterlife meant, to which Yu commented how she preferred hot springs over what the temple claimed to be paradise. When she lost Chi, however, the other idea of an afterlife, a cold, dark, lifeless void, came to mind. This, as it would most people, scared the poor potato, presenting her an image of absolute hopelessness, a place that holds neither warmth nor happiness. When the temple lights up, the other concept of an afterlife is brought up. Deities watching over a bright, peaceful space, filled with life and comfort under almighty protection. This scene compares these final destinations, as well as weaving a suggestion as to why humans create these places of worship. On one hand, there's the timeless plane that you felt alone. On the other, a perfect land of tranquility that is relieved of any worry. Both of these ideas exist within human imagination. There are people who do not believe in post-death paradise, and there are people who do believe in such a place. When the time comes for an individual to pass on, their beliefs are tested. One who has no concept of a pleasant afterlife may experience more fear in their final moments, similar to how you felt when she was left in the dark at the temple. Alternatively, someone with a concept of paradise may pass on peacefully, finding comfort in their knowledge that something will be accepting them soon. Because we don't know what truly lies beyond, however, both of these ideas are impossible to prove. Chi even notices that the temple scenery is fake, further emphasizing that all depictions of an afterlife are just what we, as humans, believe it to be, rather than what it actually is. Despite this, we do believe in these ideas. Taking that final step and bidding farewell to one's mortal existence is the hardest obstacle that humans face. And when a situation arises where that trial comes unnaturally, for example, the apocalypse, it's easier to accept that challenge with the confidence of another path. Without these ideas of paradise, all of us would fade away into the darkness. Once again, I am not making claims or accusations towards any religion or worship group. I merely wanted to discuss the psychology and themes within this scene. Humans do congregate in order to create happiness. However, this is not always the case. In fact, most of the time, humans do not agree with each other to begin with. Disagreements turn into arguments, arguments turn into conflicts, and conflicts may turn into wars. Though it's been a while since we've witnessed a true world war, battles still take place all over the globe. These quarrels range from misaligned political ideals to groups of people murdering others. For as long as humans have existed, this has been the case, and it will most likely stay this way for a very long time. Girls' Last Tour explores this possibility. While it's not clear what caused the apocalypse, there are a plethora of hints scattered throughout the series, and some of them are more closely studied. There's the scrapyard of episode 1, where the girls question why people would want to fight instead of making food. Of course, Chi provides the most likely answer to this question, but the thought nonetheless hits closer to home than a passing statement normally would. We can't just solve world hunger without having to worry about a great many other problems. But a lot of those problems are ones that should, in theory, have simple solutions as well. Why can't we come together and check off these tasks from humanity's to-do list? It's because humans are complicated. Even for those who want to make a difference, the motivation to take action is a rare commodity. As for the brave individuals who do take a stand, most of them are outweighed by the others who either don't care or are focused on other, often more selfish projects. Although it's usually an insult to call someone selfish, it's difficult to fully shift that blame onto the person. By definition, humans are selfish. Even the most generous people in history had to make great sacrifices to themselves, knowing full well that they were giving away part of themselves for an intangible prize. In modern times, with so much luxury at our fingertips, it's harder to be as selfless as these gifted individuals were. Especially when the supposed positive impact is so distant that it might as well not even be there. One cannot divide these types of dilemmas by black and white standards. Often, people will do the wrong thing knowingly because they have no other choice. Causing harm to one may be the difference in saving another. Humanity may have a long list of chores, but has an even longer list of needs that must be attended to beforehand. Conflicts like this exist everywhere, and they've occurred even before humans grew into the dominant species of this planet. As time went on, however, more and more factors were added to this impossible equation. Our population increased, demanding more resources from each other and generating new and often differing ideologies. The more we expanded, the more the world itself began to change as well. Not only did politicians have to consider the human side of an argument, now they have to deal with the potential environmental impacts. Technology has changed, and despite much of science's advancements going towards benevolent causes, an alarming arms race has seen exponential growth. More weapons of mass destruction lie in wait for activation than ever before. It's not outside the realm of possibility that, in the future, these tensions would reach a critical breaking point. I mean, just a few decades ago, we were one button press away from nuclear war. Kanazawa's camera files show this chilling reality take place. Political figures fighting with their own hands, spreading chaos in what was meant to be a room for discussions. Countries doling out genocide and destruction with machines of terrifying power. These are the haunting videos and images that Nuko displays for the girls. Presumably, large-scale conflicts continued for years, causing death across the entire globe over and over, down to Earth's final survivors. All that was left were a couple of young sisters, optimistically wandering with ignorant love in their hearts. What if humanity was to go down that path? What if we were unable to overlook our selfish problems and ended up fighting instead? Would we ever realize the mistake we made, or would we stubbornly refuse to back down until the very end? If this were to be our destiny, one apocalypse is just the beginning. In fact, the stereotypical apocalypse had occurred multiple times in Chianyu's world. There would be no one single day of reckoning. There would be no one solemn sunset as every individual on the planet watched the final missile shower. This story tells of years, decades, centuries of suffering. Humanity would commit self-harm in the slowest and most painful way possible. Even if at one point we were to recognize that we had taken the wrong path, it probably wouldn't matter. Earth would be devastated beyond recognition. To realize the misstep at that point would only cause further conflict, leading to even more pain in our final moments. This is the author's letter to society. It isn't a threat, a demand, or a warning. It's a message. The author envisioned a path that, while distant, is very, very close. Humans may be negative. They may hurt others, think pessimistically, and prioritize their own selfish needs. But no yin is complete without a yang. As much negativity resides within our people as a whole, there exists another side of emotion, one that is often overlooked. The human heart is a powerful thing. Inside, there's the capacity for compassion, empathy, generosity, and love. At some point in every person's life, this blessing is exposed. Laughing at pointless jokes with friends, gazing up at the clouds with wonder, watching a pet explore its new home, embracing those who are close. As much as we complain about how horrible we are, we don't praise ourselves nearly as much. Chi and Yu, as much as they are ignorant to many things in their travels, still have heart. Together, they laugh, cry, sing, and smile. Those who were fortunate enough to meet them along the way, Kanazawa, Ishii, the aquarium caretaker, and the elevator hologram, also experienced this compassion. All of these characters, to all intents and purposes, could have had malicious intentions. In the world after society, there are no laws, and when survival is put as the top priority, kindness is often pushed aside. However, this doesn't happen. Kanazawa helps Chi and Yu navigate to the next city level. In exchange, the girls give him a meal and the motivation to continue moving, despite losing all of his maps. Ishii provides the girls with shelter and food, as well as fixing the Kettenkrad. Chi and Yu help her complete her plane and witness humanity's final pilot take flight. Despite the following characters being non-humans, the girls nonetheless share a bond with them. The caretaker robot of the aquarium is completely harmless, so Chi and Yu could easily have taken the fish for food without a second thought. They don't. The elevator hologram towards the end of their journey is something that is barely tangible. Yet, when it makes the request to terminate its existence, the girls hesitate. Of all the previous characters, this one should be the easiest to brush aside. But something inside their hearts tells them to pick carefully. It may just be a machine, an artificial program given intelligence and a single purpose. So why would the girls care about whether it lives? It's empathy. Chi and Yu ultimately decide to favor helping the other party. Even without laws to govern over a land, people still have a sense of duty to help each other. Kanazawa guided the girls to their next destination, so they showed them how to reach his. Ishii allowed the girls to continue their journey, and the girls allowed her to rest after her hard work. The elevator AI fulfilled Chi and Yu's wish of reaching the top, and they fulfilled its dream to go to sleep. We never see these characters again, and the mushroom beings confirm that the sisters are the final humans on Earth. So it's assumed that Kanazawa and Ishii die shortly after meeting the girls. Of course, the AI is killed immediately as per its request. In the end, the girls received help towards reaching their goals, and in return, they completed the last chapters of the other characters' stories. Thus, each of their lives were fulfilled in the best way possible. At least, given their respective situations. There is another strength of the human heart that I wish to discuss. Allow me to return to a previous topic, how our environment influences the way we think and feel. Although I've mentioned multiple times that the girls aren't fully aware of what their surroundings mean, they still have the capacity to pick up environmental cues, both positive and negative. One snowy morning, the girls come across a vast metal plain. Tall black slabs form rows that extend as far as the eye can see, and each one contains named drawers. Most are sealed tight, and those that can be opened are either empty or have small useless items. Overlooking the slabs on the edge of the platform is a familiar but somewhat out of place friend, a statue from the temple. In other words, a religious icon. It doesn't take long for Chi to make the connection. The girls are the only humans left on Earth at this point. No one would reprimand them if they were to rummage through the cabinets in search of supplies. In fact, it might even be to their benefit. Every little helps when survival is so crucial. However, the girls decide to put the items back. In order to maintain the meaning of the grave, they would rather go through the effort of returning their belongings instead of looking for useful items. Of course, Yu still keeps the radio, but that's just Yu being Yu, and I'll talk about that later. In any event, because they chose to honor the gravesite, it shows that the girls still have a human heart. Along with the environment, music is something that greatly influences human emotion. Rhythm can cause a rush of various feelings. Rock music generates adrenaline. Upbeat music inspires movement. Romantic music creates compassion. It doesn't have to be music by definition. Plenty of objects in one's surroundings can hold a natural tune. As the girls ascend to higher levels of the city, the radio that you found begins to play something. She describes it as having a rhythm, but also making her feel kind of sad. At first, they discuss whether music even has the ability to control a person's emotions. The knowledgeable Chi compares things like radio waves and light waves, thinking back to previous experiences they've had. After a bit of shenanigans, they find a unique view. From the top of an abandoned industrial building, the two gaze across a deserted cityscape. The massive concrete pillars that hold up each city layer blanket the factories in monotone shadow. Another expanse of gray hovers above, cutting off most of the sky, except for a dim red sunset. All the while, the radio plays a foreign yet gentle song. A harp is strung softly, accompanied by distant background strings and a violin's melody. A basic pattern repeats, but it feels unusual. Soon, a female's voice is heard. While we can't recognize her language, her voice is calm, as though she were soothing or reassuring the listener. Tears form in Chi's eyes as the sisters stand in awe. Both of them look out over the abandoned landscape, caught in the sun's dying red rays and entranced by the unfamiliar chorus. The title of the song is Owari no Uta, or Song of the End. Personally, this is one of the most beautiful songs I've ever listened to. The melody is simple yet poignant, and there's the lingering sense of dread hidden within the notes. Although I can't understand the vocals, I feel as though I understand what is being sung. The combination of an amber sunset embracing the lifeless city and the mysterious tune playing throughout the radio captures the girls in a sense of sorrow, one that they haven't truly felt up until then. This isn't the first time the girls have experienced music. As Chi and Yu traverse a steel beam forest, drops of water land on their helmets. Before long, they're looking for shelter from the rain. Fortunately, a small ruin from the old world is nearby, allowing them a moment of respite. Out of boredom, Yu starts experimenting with random objects to see what sounds they make. She soon discovers that letting water drop onto things creates a neat pattern of noise. Together, the girls gather an array of makeshift instruments and compose Amadare no Uta, or the Song of Raindrops. Rather than the somber red sunset that I mentioned earlier, this song brings ease and happiness to the sisters' hearts. A ragtag collection of cans, barrels, and helmets created something far greater than the sum of its parts, allowing Chi and Yu to find a special moment of bliss in a quiet world. Perhaps much of their unnecessary activities can be attributed to the general lack of seriousness in their characters. However, the series was designed like this on purpose. It isn't a child's cartoon despite having silly characters and lighthearted moments. It isn't a melodramatic piece of art despite conveying many heavy messages. Chi and Yu are allowed to carry their naturally human hearts for their journey, giving them a realistic and touching finish that wholly endears us to them. This, and especially the rain scene, display one other powerful trait that the sisters share. In life, people often find themselves stressed over events that are outside of the present. They might linger on a particular memory, almost like a constant reminder of an imperfect decision or an unpleasant event. Sometimes they might constantly look out towards the future, trying to prepare or avoid an upcoming deadline. In either situation, these people create unnecessary tension that can build up faster than they realize. I've fallen victim to this stress many times in my life. And one of the easiest methods of finding relief is just to find happiness in the present. Taking the time to breathe, relax, and disregard all worries you have about the past and future is, at least to me, a great way of finding peace. Now, something to note about Chi and Yu is the duality they share involving stress. Chi often worries about honoring the past and future, wanting to replace the items from the graves, teaching Yu about the things they encounter, keeping books from the past and writing in her diary, while Yu prioritizes the moment, keeping the grave items in case they have value, not really listening to Chi's lectures, and not seeing the value in her books. All things considered, Chi seems to be the one on the right side of the morality scale. Honoring the meaning of humanity's past is a sensible ideal to carry, especially as the last members of society. Worrying about what their impact will be as these final travelers gives her a kind of meaning. While she'll never know who or what will find her diary, she wants to keep writing in it with hopes that it will be found. Her sister's carelessness is a stark contrast to this mentality. However, with each new layer they summit, the more challenging it is to maintain these ideals. Higher elevations lead to colder temperatures, and she is forced to decide what matters to her most, the books or a fire. Although on paper, Yu's lax nature may seem immoral, it could even lead to unnecessary danger. It highlights an interesting philosophy for their situation. Of course, respecting what one's journey and surroundings mean is a just moral, but it is possible to worry so much that your ability to survive is jeopardized. I do believe that Yu holds the same respect as her sister, but she also recognizes their situation in a different light. Remembering the past is important to who you are, but you'll be left behind if you linger. Welcoming the future is important to know where you're headed, but you'll miss everything along the way if you focus on that one point. Living in the present is one of the most crucial rules as a human being, no matter the time period. For most of the series, Chi doesn't see this. She desperately reaches her hands towards a fleeting hope, banking her happiness on the slightest chance. But that would only cause her more suffering in the end. Only when their goals are put at risk does she realize that she would be better to adopt her sister's mindset. I don't want to completely criticize Chi here. Again, while living in the present is a necessity for living, it's still vital to be open to the past and the future. That is one of the reasons why the potatoes make such a great pair. They make up for each other's shortcomings. Accepting losses will inevitably lead to scars. As much as she accepts how abandoning her books is the correct choice, she'll nonetheless lament the parting. In a similar sense, Ishii faced this same trial. She dedicated much of her life to building a plane, aiming for a goal that was both literally and metaphorically distant. For years, she collected blueprints, tested prototypes, and constructed massive machinery on her own. She even went through most of the leftover food supplies at the nearby factory. All of her effort was put into the flight succeeding, but it didn't. Yet, as the wreckage plummeted to the ground, she smiled. While we don't see exactly what becomes of her after she parachutes down, Apart from one extra page in the manga where we see her using the girl's previous bath, it's likely that she doesn't last long. She only brought so much food with her, hoping that her destination would have more supplies. She no longer had her bunker for shelter, leaving it exposed and alone. Why then would she smile? The flight's failure was Ishii's release. While all of her effort was wasted, what would have happened if she did succeed? What if there was more food at the neighboring city? What if there were other people? We know from the mushroom beings that sometime after the flight, Chi and Yu are the final humans on Earth, so the possibility of Ishii finding a new civilization is unlikely. Even if it was just one or two other people, their food supply would run out even faster if Ishii had arrived. She'd then have to get the plane ready for another flight, exhausting more resources and time. The plane only had one seat as well, so the other people would have had nowhere to go. Ultimately, Ishii would find herself on repeat until she gave out. Being released from the cycle was mercy, allowing her to relax, with no worries, peacefully accepting defeat. Of course, that's all a possibility. Maybe I'm not accounting for something and it would have been possible for her to survive out there. But it kind of defeats the purpose. She accepted the loss to relieve herself of a life of worry. The scientist had a dream, a distant hope that she dedicated her life to. When all of that was snapped away, so too were her fears. In the world of Girl's Last Tour, there isn't a whole lot to look forward to. Extending her life would most likely have brought her more sorrow and exhaustion. In many ways, the plane crash was the happiest ending for her. Ishii isn't the only character we see go through tremendous loss. Kanazawa nearly loses all hope when his maps are taken from him. In a similar fashion to Ishii, much of his efforts went into creating those maps, so having them slip away in mere seconds devastates him. We later learn of his former travel companion, adding further lament to his life. The girls convince him to continue moving, fortunately, allowing him to accept the loss and renewing his motivation to continue living. Towards the end of their journey, Chi and Yu also have to bid farewell to their most trusted companion, the Kettenkrad. Far into the uppermost layers of the city, the vehicle breaks down. It isn't the first time the girls have encountered problems with it, but they aren't as lucky as they were before. After desperately working to repair it, Chi is forced to accept that their Kettenkrad, their transportation, their home, their friend, can no longer move on. It's heartbreaking for her. Despite the crushing reality before them, the girls try to make the best of the situation. They empty out the vehicle and, using its empty hull, take a bath. One final moment shared between the three of them, before moving on. Bravely, the sisters find a sliver of happiness in the sea of dread. Not only have they lost the Kettenkrad, they're forced to abandon a great amount of personal items due to weight. Nonetheless, they make the most of their situation, and when they could do no more, courageously pressed on to their final goal. It's incredibly difficult to experience loss in life, and it's even more taxing to find happiness within. Often, it's easier to give up and run from the challenges that life throws at us. However, Chi and Yu hold the flame of their hearts as high as they can, despite the darkness of loss surrounding them. As Yu famously said, let's get along with the feeling of hopelessness. The last stop, Chito and Yuri's final goal. The destination that had been talked about all throughout the series. After wandering, climbing, meeting, questioning, falling, crying, losing, laughing, singing, and smiling, the girls do find the final staircase to the highest layer of the city. When they arrive, they're tired, cold, and hungry. If there was to be a final refuge of humanity, it would be there, awaiting the sisters with open arms. Unfortunately, there is no safe haven. The final layer is a flat, snowy platform under the distant night sky. To summarize, the girls are stunned at the sight. Chi questions whether or not it would have been better to turn around at some point. Yu snaps her out of it with a snowball, and the two watch one final sunrise at the highest layer. They sit against a black box, the only object apart from the stairs that is seen in the entirety of the platform. Eat one last meal, decide to sleep before choosing their next move. This is where their journey ends. As I've said before, accepting losses, living in the present, and finding happiness in adversity are all important life lessons that this show contains. This scene encapsulates all of these concepts. This was the girls' ultimate goal. They tirelessly pressed on, losing friends, belongings, food, their home, and most of their strength to reach this place. And it was all for naught. Despite this, the girls don't scream, shout, or cry in dread whatsoever. As they watch the sunrise, they crack a joke about being both the happiest and saddest people on Earth. Instead of succumbing to cold, hunger, dehydration, or other injury, they peacefully fall asleep in each other's embrace. I know I'm not alone in the sentiment that I wish the girls had a happier ending, but I also know that this is a perfect ending for the series. By allowing the girls to go to sleep in warmth and comfort like this fulfills the story beautifully. They took what they were given and made the best of it. There may not have been a thriving civilization awaiting the girls, but there was a really nice view of the sunrise. They may not have found what they had been looking for, but at least they were able to get some much needed rest. Chi and Yi recognized this. Their destination wasn't what they had expected, but in the end, they were still together. Even if they had lost everything, they had already felt as though they were complete, side by side. No matter how bleak the situation is, it's good to step back and appreciate the little things. You know, as long as this turned out to be, I probably didn't say everything I wanted to say. All the things that I did say might have come out wrong in parts. Still, I decided to write this. This series means so much to me, and it's had an impact that was far greater than I could ever have predicted. On the surface, it's just a post-apocalyptic anime, with girls in war clothing doing cute things. But diving into the city's layers reveals so much more. Chi and Yu's adventure wasn't a standard tale by any means, and this allowed them to explore some of the more interesting and personal aspects of what makes us human. Something else that I love about this story is overlooking the mushroom beings and the somewhat lessened sense of danger. It's just how realistic it is. Not only is the girl's journey believable, exploring ruins and scavenging supplies, but the world's backstory is scarily realistic. Adding to what I discussed throughout the video, this realism further emphasizes the meaning of this series. Despite being set in the distant future, many of the themes the author delivers are applicable to our present. Of course, its impact will be greater on some more than others, but I truly believe that there's something for everyone here. If you're feeling down, try changing your environment. Think about what your ideals are. Know who and what you hold dear to yourself. Recognize that life isn't always going to be easy, and remember that it's your life. But above all else, there is something special to this series. Not only is this a story about two girls' last tours, it's a story of our history. It's humanity's final message. As you could probably tell, this was my first time doing something like this. Again, I probably missed out on some important things, and I didn't say things as well as I should have. Still, thank you so much for listening. Any feedback on the piece would be greatly appreciated. Also, if there is something you'd like to add to the discussion, please feel free to do so. While I have no concrete plans to do something like this again, there are other shows that I would like to discuss. Who knows when the time will come though. In fact, if I do post again on this channel, it will probably just be stupid gaming videos with my friends. Thank you for listening.